But why do you think it is important to engage people in the conversation about Brown today?
Well, I think they need to understand the implications of not having an integrated society, right? Of having a society that remains as deeply segregated as the one we have now. If we don't see ourselves as one people, and I think, unfortunately, we don't, I think that we become more and more unable to address our common problems.
Pedro had mentioned to us that you had attended segregated schools. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Pedro teases me and says I'm the only person talking about integration. And that's because of my experience. Isolation of any kind, whether it's an all ethnic isolation, whether it's all Irish, whether it's all Italian, whether it's all what people call Hispanic or Latina, it's not good for anyone because the isolation narrows your vision, your perspective, your understanding of what the real world looks like.
Good afternoon and welcome to all, particularly our students. I just want to give the audience a full background of what's happened to bring us to today. So the students who are here have all been doing readings to prepare for this debate which is going to take place. They've been reading about Brown, they've been reading about its legacy and what's going on with respect to schools across the United States today. So this is a well-informed audience. And we did that because we think it's so important that the history not be forgotten, given how little progress we've made in addressing some of the issues that Brown was to address. So I want to thank the students for having been committed, thank the teachers that are with them for leading them in that work. Now, in addition to their preparation, we had a teach-in this morning. And I want to do a big thanks, first of all, to the students from Montclair State. Could you raise your hands, Montclair State? Because they facilitated that teaching. They also did a lot of work in preparing, so I want to thank you. And I want to thank their professor, Jordan Fulham, who's here. They played a major role in organizing this, along with Trenton Marsh, our very own Trenton Marsh event. So a lot of work has gone into today.
So why do you think it's important to have teacher education students facilitate all of the discussions?
Well, I think as teacher educators or future teachers, it's good for them to be engaging kids in high-level discussions about important issues. I think it's also good for them to build relationships with different kinds of kids, and hopefully they get that too in their student teaching. But I think this is yet another opportunity to do something significant and really see the potential our kids have for doing, higher order thinking about important social and political issues.
Why do you think it's important to have teacher education students facilitate the high school students in this teaching?
Because they are closest to students. Academicians are sort of sometimes removed. Teachers are closer to them. We believe the interaction will be better.
Our class is doing a teach-in at NYU, and we are going to facilitate high school students on the Brown versus Board of Education. And we are taking several different articles and pieces of information on Brown versus Board of Ed before we put together a presentation. And with that presentation, we're going to have about 25 minutes to explain and give all the details on what was happening in 1954.
We've read a bunch of articles, and we summarize those articles in the bullet points, and now we're in our groups, and we're gonna collectively explain our bullet points and how we got to them, and we're gonna think which bullet points are important to the historical overview of this case.
I want you to have a clear idea of what information your group is going to present. So what are the points that you want to convey to your audience? Now your presentations need to be pretty simple and to the point. So I think maybe like if you have like 5 or 6 good important points on your perspective, that will probably do the trick. So you have to be thinking about how to distill out the most important points out of all the complex information that you've been studying. That's number 1. What are the points that you want to convey in your presentation? Number 2, what are the activities that you plan to use in order to convey that information? And for this, you should write out a minute-by-minute, step-by-step plan for what your presentation is going to include. What you say you're going to do in step 2 should match the information that you say you're going to convey in step 1. This is like basic lesson planning. When those of you that are going to be teachers, when you're asked to write lesson plans, you're going to be asked to show how what you're doing in the class matches with the goal of what you want your students to understand. And that's what we're doing with 1 and 2 here. They're given a historical overview of Brown versus Board of Ed, and then they talk about the decision, which interestingly is pretty cool that it will have been 60 years ago to the day on May 17th when we're presenting at NYU.
That's awesome.
Interesting. And then they bring their audience back to the overarching question of the teach-in. School integration in the 21st century, is it a goal still worth pursuing? Right? They're going to hit on that question and try to remind the audience, the students, that the reason we're here is we're here to actually talk about this, debate it, and to come to some conclusions about how we think this question should be answered.
In middle school.
I think we should, since we have like the little kind of pictures here.
That's good.
I think we nailed
I
it.
think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
We're headed to NYU to a teach-in, which is basically about the school integration in the 21st century. And the question is it still worth pursuing? And we're making an argument in this group for integration because we believe that it is something still worth pursuing because it's still not something that's been accomplished in today's society.
Thank you. Good to see you much.
Adios.
Peace, Jordan.
So awkward.
Peace.
How are you guys doing today? You guys awake?
There were a lot of different things that were being put in place in order to level the playing field as far as races.
And what you're about to see on the next slide is Kenneth B. Clark did a controversial doll study where he took a white and a black doll and he asked these kids a series of questions.
Now we're talking about the Little Rock Nine, being this component of the decision.
There were just 9 kids who wanted to go to school and be treated as white students.
His name is Molten Freeman, and what he thinks is that if you just give this choice to the parents on where the students will go, segregation will stop on its own.
The whole point of today is to generate a conversation about whether or not school integration is still a goal worth pursuing today.
No, I was going to say, do you feel it's worth pursuing?
Yeah. I mean, you're going into education. Yeah, I mean, from going into education, I do feel it is. From my own personal experience.
Okay, so I want you guys to take 5 minutes and write an idea, opinion, or even a question on what you learned today. So just write it out, take about 5 minutes, and then we'll share that.
Like, to me, it doesn't make sense that the funding is so unequal for public schools. Like, I think that students in poorer zip codes need that, they need it more because they need more resources to, get up to catch up to people who have just had benefits from day one.
I feel like the government really doesn't pay attention to the other schools who have low scores, like schools that are in like poorer communities, because if that school doesn't like reach the par of having like above 85s or 90s in the regions, then what's the point of even keeping that school funded? And I feel like the government really does have that mentality sometimes.
Like this extreme inequality is, if we have this extreme inequality, our schools can never like really be, reformed in any like significant way.
We are creating words on artwork. I'm writing the word change.
When you have a relationship with your students, then they are eager to learn and they want to learn. Like personally, I have teachers who really sit down and they help me, rather than teachers who just, here's this paper, do this paper. They showed me they were passionate about their work and they were passionate about teaching me things. I seen school as a place to get away from the home life, and it was an opportunity to take myself out of that environment.
To take a step forward, eliminate the ignorance, discrimination in society. Black, light-skinned, Asian, Caucasian is all the same when it comes to education.
I don't think that it's right. Just because I'm not white, that I still have to fight for my God-given right to earn an education.
I run because I need time to challenge myself and be free. But to you, do I run to be the person you expect me to be? To run from the cops or escape the truth? A derived person or a troubled youth? We can't, I can't, stand tall if you won't let me. Strive to succeed in what my ancestors built. There is much time to overcome, but only if we stand all together as one. Is school integration still worth pursuing?
I don't think I'm gonna use that. I don't know how to apply
We will battle the test scores if we focus on the needs of the students in the schools. And that's where we're failing, because we're segregating the students based on placements for AP, regular, but you're not focusing on their needs.
Standardized test scores, they measure something, and I think we should want like equal scores across the board, across like socioeconomic classes or races. But I mean, in my opinion, I think that integration is more important than raising standardized test scores. I think it's more because I feel like in school you mainly learn from your classmates. Like that's a huge part of the learning that takes place every day, and I think it would benefit every kid.
Started with unfairness, planting crops. It wasn't fair. The vision had been seen, but the system wouldn't dare. Justice had been served, but the mission isn't done. Though we have won the battle, but the war was never won.
Is it because I'm Asian that I can't play ball? Is it because I'm Asian that I can't stand tall? Do I have to have a 4.0 to be like the rest? I play ball to be the best. On the court I see many faces, many dreams from many places. They say black is the color to play the sport, but black is not the only color when I'm on the court. Is school integration still worth pursuing?
So the format is a debate. I want you to know there's going to be a jury. And our jury is assembled in the front row. And the jury has done a lot of preparation work, weeks in advance, learning about the issues, and coming prepared to make informed judgments about the arguments they're going to hear. And here are the instructions. To reach a verdict, you got to deliberate with each other as jurors. That means you got to listen to each other, discuss the evidence you heard, give each other's views careful consideration, reason with each other, and as you deliberate, we want you to try to come towards an agreement about what should be done. That means, in some cases, you might have to work out a compromise. You could decide, yes, let's continue with all deliberate speed. No, this ain't working, let's focus on something else. Or you can come up with a new whole new formulation. We're giving you that room too.
Those of you who are serving as jurors, not only have you taken the time to come out today, but the time that you put in to do the research and be prepared for this discussion, I think you should be applauded for that. Keep up the good work. Our kids are being denied a basic, sound, quality education. Not asking to run off someplace else to get it. We should be getting it right here. But what we don't have, and here's what I'm going to put on you as the jurors, because it really is going to be about this next generation that's coming, is that your voices are going to have to be heard. This notion that we don't have the funds is ridiculous. What we don't have is the political will. We don't have, listen, we don't have our leaders, those who we've elected from our community, standing up for us on this issue.
The research on school desegregation, since it was really implemented more fully by the late 60s, early 70s, was focused on measuring kind of tangible factors about desegregation, so racial balance of schools, test score data, graduation rates, which is somewhat valuable, but we didn't pay at all enough attention to what was actually happening within desegregated schools. What were issues of pedagogy? What were issues of curriculum? What were issues of basically cultural imperialism within desegregated schools, okay, that then allowed structures of segregation to be recreated within desegregated spaces.
And so the real question that I hope you consider is whether pursuing integrated schools should be the top priority of our education system, of our education policies. Should it be the North Star that we build everything else around? We heard earlier from this report about Brown and 60 from Gary Warfield, and I think his opinion, my understanding is that that absolutely should be the top priority that we pursue, and everything else should fall under that. And I want to make the case that I don't think that's the right way to think about this issue. Now, should we pursue integrated schools? Absolutely. There are opportunities to create integrated schools. Should we take those opportunities? Yes. But I think that, for better or for worse, unfortunately, that's going to mean that it's going to be relatively few schools where we really have that opportunity to create an integrated environment.
Brown was 60 years ago. It did change the country. It changed the world in significant ways. Ironically, maybe not as much in public school education as it did in other areas and walks of life. Yes, we have to educate all of our children, no matter where we find them. But we all know, look at this room, who's in this room, and the young people in this room. And look who's not here. We all know that there's still a discourse and work to do if all of us as Americans are going to own the task of opening opportunity for all children, including children of color.
When a black kindergartner gets suspended for 5 days because he pulled a fire alarm, and in the same district, a white 9th grader gets detention for pulling a fire alarm, we have a kind of inequity and injustice that has to close. When we know that, and on behalf of the Obama administration, they have done some things to bring attention to that. Trying to do, that's about the data, that's about the civil rights data collection we released a few years ago, but it's really about these investigations. There are schools everywhere in this country today, regardless of their makeup, where if you were in them, and they happen to be largely African American and Latino and poor, you can't get AP classes. You can't get calculus.
We frame equality around one base standard, which has historically and continues to be that we will all be equal under the standards of white middle-class Christian males. And all these students of color and all white students gonna strive for that, including the young women, which is why we see serious health issues for white girls and young white men who don't fit into that nice, easy, but that then becomes the standard by which we're all equal. Under those premises, I disagree with the pursuit of integration. However, my work has advocated for equity. And under the principles of equity, then the student who is hungry gets fed, and the student that is thirsty gets water. Okay? Under the principles of equity, by definition, you get what you need when you need it. Okay? And if we're going to integrate under those circumstances, then I'm with it.
Let's give a big hand for our debaters.
We, the jurors, chose a third option. We believe that education in terms of resources and equity should be pursued most forcefully while still incorporating integration as a tool to further future success and open-mindedness.
And just to provide a brief explanation, we felt that education that meets the needs of individual schools and students should be the primary focus, while using integration as a tool to facilitate better learning and understanding.
All right. Thank you for that enlightened verdict. So we have a special treat as our close for the program. We spent a lot of time thinking about the importance of history and about the importance of bringing perspective on this issue. And we thought we need someone who's lived this, and not just lived it, but led it. And we thought, who better than the Reverend Justice Jackson to lead us in a reflection, to reflect a little on the verdict. We heard these young people, they listened to some master debaters, some intelligent arguments, and they thought about it. What do you think of what they came up with?
I like the verdict because it was a kind of hybrid. On the one hand, they like learning, relate to each other. They don't like racial isolation. They're willing to figure this thing out, knowing that in some instances, all shoes don't fit all feet. Some people need a Morehouse. Harvard and Yale are essentially a wash, but others may attend. Brandeis and Yeshiva are essentially Jewish, though others may attend. University of Utah is essentially a Mormon, though others may attend. Morehouse and Howard are essentially black, so others may attend. Within the context of our freedom is room for a multicultural heterogeneous education.
Go further then, because the part of what we're grappling with, what these young people grappling with this decision is, the law has changed. And you're right about how significant that changing the law is. But then we still have the reality of deep and profound inequality. Laws have changed, schools still segregated. Schools not just segregated, inferior. Less money spent on average for poor children across America. And with that money comes, we're talking about schools right here in New York City, where children have no playgrounds, no libraries, basic facilities not present in the richest city in this country, one of the richest cities in the world. Something is wrong with laws if they can't guarantee these kinds of opportunities for children.
You kind of raised two questions. One is, we're free but not equal. And freedom precedes the fight for equality. I would make the case that as we sit on May 17th, three biggest decisions in our country was one, the 13th Amendment, to end 246 years of slavery, with the richest slave port being New York City, where there's the African burial ground today. The second big decision was the 54th decision to make apartheid illegal. The third one was the right to vote. That was the beginning of the end of fighting a system 346 years deep in the DNA of the American culture.
My generation knew that there was a struggle that broke down those walls. That it didn't just happen because Johnson was president, it happened because there was a movement that forced changes. We don't have a movement right now. We have deep inequality. We have a lot of hand-wringing about it, but we don't have a movement that is generating inspiration and activity from this generation?
Well, what you have, which we didn't have, is the right to be a juror. It's a power that we didn't have. So you use that power. You also have the power to not self-destruct. The power to resist drugs and violence.
How old are you in that picture there?
27.
27 years old? I remember you.
Sure.
Oh, they got them. The jurors got a picture. I was a Jackson delegate in 1988 when you made your second run for president and you won the state of California and got to be a whip in at the convention in Atlanta. And you know, you've stayed active, you stayed involved, you haven't slowed down a bit over the years. And as you look ahead, I want you to, what do you see on the horizon that will keep these young people who have so much to look forward to, keep them looking forward, keep them optimistic about the possibilities for this future?
Strong minds break strong chains. And with strong minds must come a sense that I matter. I am somebody. I matter. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. Red and yellow. Brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Let me hear you scream.
We want to thank all of you for coming for the last day and a half. Let's thank our jurors.
It's just about love, I do know. A woman is fine and she can be fine, but a llama is numero uno. Hey, Marty, how are you?
You know and understand the growing inequality, the growing debt facing so many young people in this country. Why do you remain optimistic?
Because we're winning.